Good morning. Happy Friday to everybody. I'm sorry I was a few minutes late here getting everything set up, but I'm here. It's that time. It's your favorite unk in the house representing Arsenal for the soccer fans that are out there. But I'm here on Friday, March the 15th. Let's get this thing going. Let's get this party started. To everybody out there that's in the house, in the chat, I 100% appreciate you. Be doing this thing solo today. Solo, as far as that is concerned, because there's no Alex Dunlap. I think Alex Dunlap will be back next week. As we get this whole thing started, we'll do the podcast starting on Monday. And just so you know, just so we're clear, spring ball begins on Tuesday. First day of practice will be on Tuesday morning. So guess what? Actually, just so for your programming notes, Alex and I won't be here because we have media availability starting at 9 o'clock, where we actually get a chance to go to practice on Tuesday to lay eyes on everybody, see what everything's going on. So that should be a fun time. So we're excited about that. And so again, thank you guys for coming in. Thank you guys for being in the chat. It's good to see you, Ben G. Good to see you, my main man, Corleone. Good to see you, Zio_V. Shaking my head. Hey, man, Zio_V. I'm here. Sometimes CP Times hits us, but nonetheless, we are here. And just another favorite viewer is in the house as well. So good morning to everybody. Y'all keep coming in, piling on in, hit the like button, hit subscribe to the channel if you have not, so I don't have to keep telling you all that kind of things. But and good morning to you, David. Good to see you, David. Ebel? Or was it Ebel? I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but nonetheless, man, I got a good show planned for y'all today. I got a good show, as long as I turn off my phone. I got a good show planned for y'all today. I got a lot of fun stuff to discuss, a lot of things that I want to get into within this hour of less of a conversation. But we're going to have, I'm calling a preemptive Quinn Ewers conversation. A preemptive because, sometimes Unc can be a little prophetic in the things that he say. Now, I'm not saying I'm a prophet. No. Not cut from that cloth. No, sirree, Bob. But there's certain things I understand. There's certain things in the industry I understand that people say. And so I want to kind of be a little prophetic and get ahead of everything, the narratives that I know are coming. So let's get ready to dive into this. By the way, before we get too far into everything, I do want to tell you about my main man, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Want to take care of my main man, Eric Torres. Now, let me see. I've been trying to do this here. All right, I've been trying to do this here. It's supposed to go underneath. Hold on. Because this is what happens when you got to produce a show by yourself. It is not the easiest thing to do to try to talk and then look for things. Here we go. Eric, listen, there it is. If you're looking for a home in the DFW area, don't look any further than your main man, Eric Torres, El Presidente. He's got you covered. That's the QR code right there. Check him out. Eric Sells Homes, DFW is the man with the master plan. He's got you covered. Looking to buy, looking to sell, whatever it is, last time. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. A lot of y'all listen from the DFW area, so go ahead and check him out. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Okay, so I started by saying this, so you guys know where I'm going and why I'm going here. I made a prediction to y'all last year. If you're listening to the show, and there's a lot of you all who listen to me pretty consistently, Money B will be able to attest to this. Rodolfo will be able to attest to this. A lot of the other folks who listen to me, Jared is another one who attests to this. Just another fragrance reviewer will attest to it as well. Ben G, all y'all. Yeah, they will tell you that I made a prediction last year. And I want to say it was around November of last year. And I said, be very careful about the offseason. And what did I say why? I said, because the reporters out there know that if they want to get clicks and views for a story, all they got to do is put the name Arch Manning in a headline, and they know automatically they're going to get clicks and reviews. So I told everybody, I said, be careful going into the off season, because these reporters know this. These journals know this. Alex likes to call them journalists. A lot of these people aren't real journalists, in my opinion. Okay. There's that. Anyway, diploma on the wall, Anyway, not all of them are that. So I predicted it. Be careful. What happened? People started putting out articles. Where could Arch Manning transfer to if he wanted to transfer? What? What options would be available to Arch Manning if he had wanted to leave? And it was just clickbait after clickbait after clickbait. And y'all saw it. You saw it in late November. You saw it in December. There was an article that someone wrote as breaking news that Arch Manning decided that Arch Manning was coming back for his second season, when there was never a conversation that Arch Manning was even considering leaving. But it got clicks, right? It's because I understood within our industry that there's a lot of people who are not only who are lazy. I'll just say it like that. Who are lazy. And this is the easiest way to get it. And so Arch is the easiest way. And you guys see it. It's the easiest way for someone to get their name out there and have people talking about it. It is absolutely clickbait, right? And so I understood that. And that's when I made that prediction months before it happened, and we saw it happen. And I started to see something else that I want to get ahead of. Kind of on that same vein, kind of on that same line there. And there's going to be a conversation that's going to be had about Quinn Ewers as we get ready to start spring ball. And that conversation, thank you, by the way, Justin, that was a Facebook viewer. And that conversation is going to center around what are the things that Quinn Ewers needs to do to be as good as the other quarterbacks in college football. And that will be the narrative that you're going to hear. That's not only the narrative that you're going to hear on other channels, in other print. It's going to be the narrative that you probably hear on some shows here. It just kind of is what it is. I've been fighting this fight. I know my friends. I know my coworkers. I know my compadres. And I know what they say. And that's not to say that they're lazy. The Arch Manning thing is lazy. But that's to say that I know what the narrative is going to be, and I know what the narrative is going to be as relates to Quinn Ewers. And in the famous words of Public Enemy, allow Unc to tell you today, don't believe the hype without the Flavor Flav clock. And for you young people who don't know, Public Enemy used to be a rap group. And anyway, because it's probably 30 years ago. So there's a contingent of folks out there who may have heard of it, but actually don't really know anything. Anyway, nonetheless, I understand what the narrative is going to be. And they're going to tell you about Quinn. And they're going to tell you how he needs to play better. And they're going to tell you how all these things about Quinn and all the things that he needs to do, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to tell you, sorry, don't believe that hype, because the quarterback that you have is not only good enough, if he takes another step, it's going to be out of this world. But the quarterback that you have, before they try to sell you a bag of goods to let you know or try to make you believe that Quinn Ewers is not good enough, allow me on this day, before we even get started, before I have the arguments that I know is going to ensue in April and May and June and going into the all season, let me preemptively get ahead of that. Because I sat here yesterday with Travis Gailey Filton. Thought he did a really good job. And I sat here yesterday with Travis, and I already got a glimpse on it. I already got a glimpse on it. I heard it. And it started with, oh, Quinn, deep ball. Ooh. That Quinn, the deep ball, one thing Quinn going to have to get better at, he's going to have to get better at that deep ball. Yeah, I heard that, right? And then I said, oh man, well there's a saying in the old newsroom, right? Journalist newsroom. It's a kind of a joke. But they used to say, never let facts get in the way of a good story. As the old newsroom saying, never let facts get in the way of a good story. And what that meant is like, hey, man, hey, if it sounds good, just go with it. And so sometimes it's easy to go with narratives that may or may not be even true. So let's talk about the deep ball for a second. Let's break that down. Quinn, deep ball, got to get better. Well, let me just put this tweet out from a little bit earlier this year. Okay, got a person by the name of Kyle Lindemann puts out this tweet here. Real simple, and this is right before the combine. And it says, when that one long bomb sends everyone into a frenzy at the NFL Combine this week, just remember that in 2023, 68% of all the passes thrown were 9 air yards or less. Nearly 70% of all passes thrown were 9 air yards or less. And of course, he's talking about NFL, right? But with NFL defenses focusing on stopping explosiveness, dink and dunk is the new meta. Now, I wish Kyle would have attributed where he got that thing from, but Kyle does some metrics on his on the website that he works for. So I'm sure it comes from something like that. So when we start talking about Quinn, deep ball, how he needs to be better, and you look at what typically happens in games, and again, believe this is NFL games, where you're talking about 70% with 9 in the air or less. What are we really talking about? We're talking about then the way for a quarterback to be efficient isn't necessarily how we would think about it from a Madden perspective of just airing this thing out, right? But it's actually being effective within a short yardage system, a short yardage game. So that's one thing that you look at when you look at Quinn. You say, well, that's actually plays to his advantage because he can make all those throws. I think we're always looking for like the deep passes, but that's not necessarily the barometer of success. So when it comes to all right, that's why I say, well, what you have is good enough. Before they tell you what you have isn't good enough, understand that what you do have is absolutely good enough. Okay, let's go here. We're going, and I will pull this up a lot. I will pull up these stats a lot, so everyone has a chance to see it, and one has a chance to engage in it. This is Quinn Ewers over 12 games. Okay, and we take it in totality, right? Wyoming, that happened. I can't explain that one, right? That was a tough one. That was a tough game there, right? And we look at Texas Tech. That was another kind of a little bit of an off game, coming back from an injury, of course, right? But then we can't ignore, and maybe to a certain degree Houston. But even though Houston that was just a weird game. He completed 23 or 29, but for 211, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But then I go and look at the Alabama game. I'm looking at the big games when it counts. Alabama, right? 24-38 for 349, 3 touchdowns. We cannot act like that didn't happen. And and listen, they beat the hell out of Wyoming. So let's I mean, I won't say about hell out of they beat Wyoming. They got past Wyoming. They opened up the floodgates in the fourth quarter. Let me be more specific. But he went on the road, and that happened against Alabama. The real issue in Oklahoma was the 2 interceptions. But if you look at the 2, it also 31 of 37, 346, and $160, quite wasn't necessarily the reason they lost that game. Lost the game because they couldn't stop Dillon Gabriel. That was the reason why they lost the game. Couldn't put them in a position to win. This team could not stop Dillon Gabriel when it counted the most, where it seemed like there was no way that they should be able to pull off that victory. Somehow, some way they did. That wasn't a Quinn Ewers thing at all. We look at the Oklahoma State game, in the championship game, big-time game. I mean, he goes off. 452, 4 touchdowns and interception. Doesn't matter. He went off. They curb stomped Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. And of course, Washington happens. And Washington, again, it wasn't for me as much of a Quinn thing as it was Michael Penix. I think Travis Gailey put it best. Travis said, "Look, Michael Penix went into God mode in that game. He did. He did. I don't lose best around with God. I'm not sacrilegious or anything like that. But I will have to admit, Michael Penix did something that we just saw that was just next world, right? And so it's still, no matter what, they had a chance to win that game. Now, we can talk about the play calling within that game and what happened on that final drive and then on those final plays. And there's probably some. I'm not gonna put it all on Quinn because you probably could have tried something else and done something different. Oh, I love what coaches they love when their play calling gets questioned, don't they? Oh, they hate it. They hate it. But Darn's right. Fumbles lost that game, right? It's not a Quinn thing. So when I look at it and I look at Quinn, I say to myself, when I look at those numbers, you know what? Those numbers are good enough. Those are good enough. By the way, let's get into some of the numbers, right? Let's get into some of the numbers. Because is it good enough? Is it not good enough? So on and so forth, right? But I would say this before I'm gonna do something in a second, but I got a lot more to do. But I'll say this. When I start looking at it, I say to myself, how many other quarterbacks out there do you really want? How many other quarterbacks out there do you really need? Okay. But I understand what the narrative is going to be. And I totally get that. Okay. But at the end of the day, when you go into the SEC and you've got a guy who started in 2 years, two years here, who has played well in big games, right? He played well. Listen, we don't know what could have been, but we have a glimpse of what could have been because we saw Quinn Ewers healthy for 4 quarters against Alabama. So we know, had he not been injured the year before that Texas probably beats Alabama. Let's just be honest about that, okay? And I know Ketch will debate me on that one and say, well, we don't know. I got 4 quarters in Tuscaloosa that proves to me that I know what would have happened in that game. I know what happened in the first quarter, and I feel pretty confident what would have happened going forward past that. It just needed a little bit of offense. Quinn got it. Quinn, unfortunately, he was hurt in that game, wasn't able to finish it. But I know what this man could do in the big games. But I understand. They're going to talk about Sanders and Beck, and they're going to talk about Gabriel, and they're going to talk about Milroe, and going to talk about how these guys are so much better than him, and what he needs to do to get as good as those guys. Okay, well, let's just go last season. Okay, let's just look at the Big 12 from last year. I'm looking at Dylan Gabriel, averaging 305. And I'm looking at Quinn Ewers right there at 289. I'm looking at the yards where we're talking about less than 200 yards separating those two. I'm looking at a completion percentage that's damn near identical. Yeah. Now, if you want to pick apart something, you talk about Dylan Gabriel having a higher passer rating, sure. And you can talk about him throwing more touchdowns. Got it. I can tell you, I would contend that Dylan Gabriel did not play in Alabama, but that's okay. That's okay. Nonetheless, I'll give you that. Let's just give you that. And then outside of that, Quinn's better than the other quarterbacks that are in the conference. He was better than Alec Bowman. He's better than Rocco Beck. Rocco Beck's a freshman, though. Rocco Beck's going to be really good, though. I like him a lot. He's better than everybody else. So even if you want to say he was the quote-unquote second best quarterback in the conference, so be it. It's funny how those the all-conference awards, People use that for their arguments when they want to use it, and then they use it against it when they don't want to use it. So it's interesting with that. But nonetheless, I'll go over that for a little bit. So that's what Quinn was last season. So again, when we start talking about that's 12 games. So when we start talking about, hey, what he is or is not, I would tell you, again, I will contend, hey, pretty good. That looked to me like good enough. I mean, does he need to be as good as Dillon Gabriel? I don't know. Seemed like from a stat standpoint, he was last year. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to pull this up for y'all. I want to pull this one up. By the way, from a stats standpoint, it was. And by the way, Texas obviously finishes with a better record. But let's go to Dillon Gabriel. Right? Let's go ahead and look at Mr. Gabriel for a second, because yes, he finishes with a few more touchdowns. It does help when you have Arkansas State on the schedule. SMU on your schedule probably helps a little bit. Tulsa helps a little bit. I mean, we're talking about 11 touchdowns just in that time span. Just 11 with that. Now, again, he plays in Cincinnati, he throws one, right? Iowa State, a little bit better of a performance there. Texas, we really what kills Texas is what he does on the ground. 14 rushes for 113 yards. I mean, that there is still something I still can't believe that happened. But nonetheless, it did. TCU, I'm not TCU, I'm BYU, TCU at the end. At the end of the day, I got to look at this, and I have to go back and look at this. I have to go back and see how many ranked teams Oklahoma played, Dillon Gabriel played last year. Oklahoma State would have probably been ranked. Kansas potentially could have been ranked at some point. Not a lot, though, right? But that's Dillon Gabriel, though. All right, so if you want to go into like he should be as good as that. And again, the touchdowns is a differential. I would propose to you that the man was able to throw 11 touchdowns combined versus Tulsa, SMU, and Arkansas State. I mean, not a bad way to be able to pad your stats. All right, but and again, the really only quote unquote softies that were in there were Rice and Wyoming for Quinn. Is probably like the only softer teams. So, but no Arkansas State, so on and so forth, right? So anyway, just want to make sure that we get into that. So all right, I feel like we've got a good apples to apples conversation as relates to that person, right? So then, I'll hear the Carson Beck, because that's the other one I hear. Well, it's got to be as good as Carson Beck was at Georgia. Carson Beck had a really good season, right? Carson Beck, right? Let's go to Carson Beck, okay? Carson Beck, right there, he finishes at the end of the day with 3,941 touchdown yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, same amount as Quinn Ewers, right? So we're talking about 500 yards, maybe passing, and only a 2 touchdown difference in 14 games, by the way. So Carson Beck gets 14 games, and he throws only 2 more touchdowns than Quinn Ewers did in 12 games. Okay, passer rating is a little bit different, but we're not talking about out of the ballpark. Quinn Ewers at a 158.6, and we got Carson at 167.9. So we're talking 10 points on average or less. And again, we're talking rushing about $117 for Beck. And then Quinn, how many Quinn has? Yeah, Quinn. So really nothing much for either of these guys from a rushing perspective. But when it's all said and done, Carson Beck in 2 more games, you get Quinn 2 more games. Then you have the ability, and again, boy, golly, SEC knows how to schedule. Tennessee, Martin, Ball State, Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. I mean, my goodness, but this is how you schedule, baby. I mean, this is how you just figure out, how do I pad my stats? Give me a Tennessee Martin. By the way, whatever you want to say about Quinn versus Wyoming, Georgia versus Tennessee Martin, and Carson Beck stat line over that ain't really that impressive. Can I say ain't really that impressive? I'm from the South, so I'm allowed to say that, right? I'm allowed to say that. Y'all understand what I'm saying. But it's not that impressive. And then again, a bunch of teams that are just good. But nonetheless, that's fine. That's fine. So there it is. So we got the Carson Beck comparison. And again, we're not looking at something when people start saying, well, gotta be like Carson Beck. I don't think any of us looked at that thing and said to ourselves, boy, he showed them below in that Carson Beck conversation, even though I've heard people say that he needs to take a step and be as good as Carson Beck. I can contend. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The numbers show that he's right there in the same conversation as that person. I don't understand why my man can't get more respect. I'm going to put some respect on his name today. I heard the other one about Jalen Milroe. Jalen. Now listen, we saw him. I saw him. You saw him. You saw him play against Texas, and you saw him in other games. You saw him play against Texas and then get benched the next week against University of South Florida Bulls. They were like, you can't play against USF. I don't know if something else happened to that. But after my man ain't got give me a quarterback that's been benched. He wasn't even benched. Quinn wasn't benched. We'll go back to here. And so we're talking about, from a passing perspective, 2,834 yards for him. 3,479. Okay. So yes. Now, same amount of interceptions, nearly the same amount, 13 games, for him. Now, Monroe is where he's a killer. He kills you with the rushing yards, right? He kills you with the rushing yards at 531 and those 12 TDs. I mean, that's hard to contend with. But from a passing perspective, you would say to yourself, I don't know. I think we can make an argument that Quinn Ewers is not, if not only in the category of Milroe, pretty much can contend that I think he's a better quarterback than Milroe. I think they both do different things. But is it that astronomical? So again, you're going to hear that in the conversation. Well, Jalen Milroe, what he does, so on and so forth. Again, the numbers prove that Quinn Ewers is right there in that conversation. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm having fun. I hope y'all are having fun too. So let's just look at the college football passing leaders from last season. Right? Just simple stuff. I got you. Want to know what's going on? Here it is. By the way, if you guys don't know, and if you need a website that is a good resource, this one is a fantastic resource. CFB Stats. I think they do a phenomenal job. I love all their stats. It's the thing I've leaned on for a number of years. I find it better than the other websites that are out there. It's just my preference. So I'll give you one of Unk's tools right here. Use CFB Stats. Tons of great stuff if you like to nerd out on some numbers. So we look at the passing leaders from last season. I got that on the screen for you. We got Penix, and they're basically doing this off the yards per game, and that's the category that will be on your far right, guys. All right, and ladies, of course. But the 326.9. Okay, where you see Dylan Gabriel, he's at number 6 at that 305 spot. Shador is at 293, and Quinn is right there at 289. Stay there if you can and look at Shador and Quinn. Look at number 10 and look at number 12. Okay, just for a second. Now listen, here's one thing I'm going to tell you about Shador that I absolutely respect about him. My man was able to do it without an offensive line. And I cannot take that away from him. Like I will grade him on a curve all day because we know he had nobody blocker for him. Okay. That being said, as phenomenal as Shedeur was last season, and as good as he was last season, Quinn finishes with more passing yards than Shedeur. Is that crazy? Crazy when it's all said and done? One more game, but he finishes with more passing yards. The touchdowns, Shedeur finishes with 5 more. Now, the one thing Shedeur does incredibly well, and I think this is what makes him really, really elite in this conversation, is that he don't turn the ball over. It's an impressive feat when you consider how crappy his offensive line was. For the man to only throw 3 interceptions, now that is impressive. I'm just going to be honest with you. That is impressive. Then outside of that, it's, again, are we talking about we can't be in the conversation? We talk about night and day. It's when we have that conversation. And by the way, number 16 on that list is Carson Beck. So just so we're clear, and again, we're not talking about an astronomical amount. Like, we're not talking about Penix versus Beck, but we're talking about, hey, who's averaging more yards per game? Technically, Quinn averaged more yards per game than Carson Beck did. And you guys, again, you can see that entire list that's on there. And so the guys that he has they're in a conversation with Quinn, not too many that you look at and say to yourself, I don't know. It's got to be better than that. Because, again, these are the things I hear as relates to him. These are the things I hear like, oh, man, like, hey. And I'm like, well, I nothing that you have suggested other than some opinions, but there's no stats, no facts to actually prove anything that said in any of the narratives that are being spun as relates to Quinn. And none of it, the numbers show that none of it is true. Now, if there is anything that you want to do from an objective standpoint, because listen, I'm a Quinn guy. I have been a Quinn guy for a while. Okay, so let's just be clear on that one. I'll let you know that I have been a Quinn guy. I was a Casey Thompson guy. So clear. Like, I was a Casey Thompson guy, and when he was in the quarterback competition, I always felt like he was the better quarterback. And it's crazy that the young man's name escapes me right now. The guy who went to Purdue that he was competing against. Golly, I was getting old. It's going to come back to me in a second, but nonetheless, I was a Casey guy, right? And I felt like he was better, and I felt like everything I saw was better. And when it was all said and done, he ended up being the better quarterback, right? But I stood on that. I stood on that the whole thing. And boy, I was so more right than I was wrong. And I really wish people would give me a little bit more credit for that one. But that's okay. So it was a Casey guy. But nonetheless, I knew that, hey, if there was an opportunity to upgrade, go take it. And Quinn Ewers comes in. And I was a Quinn guy. And I stood on this thing. And listen, and there was the thank you, Hudson Carr. I can't believe I couldn't remember the young man's name. And so thank you, Wood 12. And so I stood on that. And I remember there was Malik guys. And I remember, it ain't wasn't too long ago. The bros, y'all was out there. Y'all was taking away my black card because y'all said I was supposed to be riding with Malik. I was like, I like Malik, but I just think that this man here is better. Y'all sure was threatening to take away my card, boy. You sure was. I won't forget. Hope Malik Murphy does well, by the way, where he's at. Good young man, by the way. Good young kid. But I stand on that. So I'm a Quinn guy, and I will always come back to that. That I think Quinn is a good quarterback. And so, but I can also be objective because there's too many people who are saying like they're that, they're a guy, but they're not objective about it. So I say it all to say I can be objective enough to say I know of an area that I would like Quinn to be better at this season. And what is that? Okay. This is so because I'm not going to just give you all this great stuff and then give you nothing. Like, no, let me be objective about this. In the area that I would like to see him improve in will be throwing the touchdowns. So I pulled it up. So just so you know, like I know I'm not just trying to say it to prove my points and ignoring facts. But from a touchdown passing perspective, I would love for him to be better in that particular area. Bo Nix leads the country at number 1 with 45 touchdowns. You see Jaden Daniels, he's at 40. You see Michael Penix, he's at 36, right? These are like, okay, these are your Heisman kind of conversations, right? That's what you would talk about. Quinn Ewers going to be in New York. Will Quinn Ewers be competing for a Heisman? That's what those numbers need to look at. Caleb Williams, right there, kind of a middle of the road at that 30-point tie with Dylan Gabriel, right? And that's a middle of the road. It's still kind of upper echelon as far as that road is concerned. And then we go all the way down to Quinn at 37. I want that number to be higher. Okay, that if there's anything you could say that I want to see, but I want to see that number. I want him to be at that, like these ballers that we see at the top, the Jaden Daniels of the world. Like I want him to be around 4,000 and putting up 35 to 40 touchdowns. Like that's what I want to see. And I think he's got the ability to do it. I think he's got the receiving weapons to do it. Like, I think he has that ability in him. So, again, if I'm just being objective and not just going on some sort of agenda, I would say to myself, yes, that's an area. And I just want to make sure you keep it up there because I know, it's a small print. Some of you guys may be looking at this thing on your phone. Everybody may not have it on their television at this moment. So I'm giving you the time to kind of squint your eyes and look at, there's Drake May at number 24. There's Carson Beck at 24, right? And I just want you to go, there's Rocco Beck. It's going to be really good when it's all said and done. I'm just going to keep telling you that. Not just because I know Anthony Beck is daddy. Even though that does play a part in it, though. But he's good. At least I saw him play. We've seen him play. Like, this young man's going to be good. That's one area I would say to myself, yes, I would like that to happen. Some of that is on Quinn. Some of that's on the play calling, so on and so forth. But you tell me that. Can he get better at that particular thing? 100%. But even if we're talking about 30 plus, now we're talking about we're in an area where if you do play a quarterback in the future who does go into God mode, the way Penix did, you have the same button as well. And we've seen glimpses of it, right? The Alabama game, Oklahoma State game, we know it's there. It's just now, if we're saying like, hey, we just want him, and the conversation is, we just want him to be the baddest man on the planet. Okay, sure, room for growth. But if the conversation is, we want him to be as good as Sanders or Beck or Gabriel or Milroe, then I say you have to ignore that conversation because it's not true. He is. And I can argue in certain instances, he is actually better. Stats show that. Numbers show that. Can he get better? Can he improve? Sure. Absolutely. Yes. But is he good enough? 100%. Will he be better than the majority of quarterbacks that Texas faces this year? Yes. Head to head. When you look at that schedule, there are not a lot of people on that schedule that you would say to yourself, oh man, Texas, they'll have the advantage In the first 5 games, for sure, they should have an advantage in the Red River game, right? Because at that point, you still got a first-year starter at quarterback. The Georgia game should be a little bit even. I still go with Quinn. That's who I'll go with. But fine, if you just want to say it's even, go for it. And then the rest of that, Texas just should have an advantage. Get to A&M. I mean, they should have an advantage in every single game. Every single game that Quinn is in and Quinn is healthy, Texas has the advantage at the quarterback situation all year long. So there really is no reason that we don't see Quinn hit this next level, that he doesn't all of a sudden look like Penix or Nix or anything like that. A guy, these veteran guys who, by the way, guys who played for a long period of time. Like, these aren't guys who hit this next level who just did that in year one. All these guys that we talked about on that list, those are all veteran quarterbacks, right? The Bo Nix, veteran quarterback, right? Daniels, Penix, right? I mean, these are veteran quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel had been playing for a billion years. Caleb Williams, that's his junior season. Seems like he's been playing forever as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go down the list and you see a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys are veteran guys. Quinn Ewers, at the end of the day, still was a sophomore. Yeah, still was a sophomore. Just want to make sure I have that out there. So listen, next week, what's going to happen is this. What's going to happen? We're going to start spring ball. It'll get kicked off on Tuesday. And you're going to hear lots of stuff. We're going to hear about how the receivers are adjusting. We're going to hear about the offensive line. We're going to hear about the new guys on the defensive line, how the edge guys are doing, right? How Anthony Hill is doing, what does the secondary look like? We're going to hear all kinds of things. And yes, at the end of the day, we're going to hear people start saying, yeah, but the season all hinges on Quinn. It's all about Quinn. And all about what Quinn does. And you're going to hear a lot of those things. And that's fine. But just understand that Quinn was just as good as every single person that they're going to compare him to. Better in some instances. Had a better record for sure. Took his team further for sure. Oh, yeah. Don't forget about that college football playoff, because when I looked around, I didn't see Georgia in there. Did y'all? I didn't see Georgia. I didn't see Georgia. So just so we're clear. And by the way, of those four, what is it? Out of the 4 teams that made it, 3 have new coaches. So just saying. I'm just saying. I'm going to give Texas the advantage. I'm going to give Quinn the advantage in those conversations. So at the end of the day, what's Unk saying? Put some respect on the young man's name. He's not only good enough, he's more than good enough. And by the way, speaking of good, specs. Low prices. It's Friday. It's time for you guys to go out there and enjoy yourself. And Spec has the best prices on beer, wine, and spirits. Go check them out.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Cheers to all of y'all that are out there, man. Listen, hit that like Antoine said, hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. Unk needs the likes. Us needs the likes, and put that out there. Do me a favor too. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. We always want to try to grow the channel, right? But and then listen, man. The last thing I'm gonna ask, I don't really ask for much, but you guys like to share things in your group chats. You guys like to share things on your social media. I tell people all the time, man, don't worry about sharing all the political stuff on your social media pages, on your Facebooks or whatever. Like, you're not gonna make If you're a liberal, you're not going to make someone to a conservative. You're a conservative, you're not going to make someone to the liberal. But you guys can have a really good, healthy, fun conversation as it relates to sports, especially as it relates to your Longhorns. And so at the end of the day, if you can share that within y'all's groups chats, within your social media, that would really, I'd appreciate that as well. Hit the like button. Just for me, being able to kind of sit there and do this. By the way, yeah, oops, I'll put that up by accident, Benji. I think I put up a private conversation that you was having with somebody else and I hit the wrong button. But nonetheless, I appreciate all you guys checking it out. I will be back. I'll be back on Monday morning for the Modcast. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Adele, you just came in. Good to see you, DC. I may go out to see Austin FC this weekend, but I'm going to have a good time with the kids this weekend. So y'all enjoy yourself. Quinn Ewers is good enough. Put some respect on my man's name. Y'all be safe driving back and forth this weekend, man. Be safe on those roads. People are going to be coming back from spring break, so just be safe while you guys are out there. Remember what I always say: live each day like it was your last, because one day it will be. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, and I